Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chapter 6 of The Path, A Gamer's Guide to Mastery. This is the book that I wrote on basically trying to get good and manage your mindset and mentality when pursuing skill in a game. Chapter 6, The Path. Levering edges and leaving openings. Understanding action on the economy spectrum. Successful strategy is built on knowledge of how actions shape situations. Whether forming your own plans or following a prescribed pattern, expanding the understanding behind the decision-making involved will empower you with knowledge of how to evolve your strategy in the ever-flowing flow, ever-changing flow of combat. Cultivate understanding of the potential vulnerabilities of your progression and find edges and openings to inform your decisions. Basically, look up some strats. The economy spectrum. Edges are advantages created by decision-making in-game. In strategy gaming, players can invest heavily into economy for more army value and bases later, that is greedy play, or quickly into army for attacking power early, aggressive play. There exists a spectrum from the greediest possible build to the earliest possible aggression, with all the permutations between. Some builds strike a balance between aggression and greed to invest in sufficient defense against various aggressive moves while growing economy. That would be solid play. Generally, aggressive play is going to beat greedy play is going to get ahead of solid play, and solid play defends against aggressive play. But these relationships do not consider player execution. A confident, greedy player can mitigate losses against aggression and then leverage their economic edge into superior production. An aggressor can outmuscle a solid opener with superior unit control. An example for this would be if I play against a Zerg who's below 5k MMR, I will open 17 gas, 17 pool, 17 hatch, and just do some Ling Bane harass. Even if they go hatch first, I'm confident that I can wrestle some damage through their bases and then get ahead in a macro game, even though the build is not as economical as hatch first. A solid player with superior macro can outproduce a greedy player who cuts corners early on. So just because they went Nexus first doesn't mean you can't catch up and get ahead. The edge. Specific edges can vary by game, though the principles behind them often overlap. Edges in StarCraft 2 can include the following: army value, the minerals, gas, and supply therein. Income, minerals, gas, larva. Production, utilization of structures and larva. You can actually add energy to this income. High Templar energy is like gaining storms over time. Queen energy is like gaining transfuses, creep tumors, etc. Orbital commands and Nexus also have energy. Production, utilization of structures and larva. Upgrades, ground and air, attack and armor, energy increase, range, movement speed. Each of these investments can grant you some edges in combat. Composition, army strategy and diversity, units complementing one another. You can have the edge of having a better army composition that works better together and is able to take engagements more effectively, or is a counter composition to your opponent's army. Position, location of units on the map to defend or attack key locations. Positionally, you can oftentimes take an engagement where you win, but you had the weaker army on paper. This would be because you have high ground, you have the better concave, or you have defender's advantage. Vision, completeness of information by scouting. If you have a unit at the opponent's third or fourth base locations, you know how many bases they're working with. If you have the watchtower, you can see a big area of the map. If you have a unit outside the opponent's base, you can see when they move out. The more vision you have, the more information you have to respond accordingly. Mobility. That's the movement potential of an army. Can your army retreat if it needs to? Or is it committed wherever you put it? The edge of mobility means you get to choose whether or not you want to fight, or base race. Air control, dead space, cliff movement, engagement. So you can put some spores, missile turrets, cannons at key locations and create the edge of air control around your base. You can also invest in air army. So if you have the stronger air army, you can decide whether or not the opponent is going to be able to move around toward your base through the air. In planning, know your initial edge and how to leverage it efficiently to take the victory or create more advantages. Wield the resulting advantages as your new set of edges. Example, I plan to open with aggression to leverage army value as my edge, acquire vision, and establish mobility. During the attack, I focus on economic growth to take an income lead. This would be like making drones behind a Ling Bane timing. As my target economy is reached, I will aim for constant upgrades and continuous production to take another fight. The opening. For every strategy, there exists an ideal counter-strategy. Know the nature of the counter-strategies which could be leveraged against you and how to make the necessary adjustments upon identifying them. Often, there exist openings only identified when an opponent presses them. Be thankful for their contribution. Were it not for fierce opposition, we would have neither competition nor knowledge of our weaknesses in execution. Each live performance serves as a test of our edges and openings. Every replay presents an opportunity to review errors, from ridiculous blunders to subtle hesitation. The formation of sound plans requires effort and careful study. Be curious about the vast information and patterns in decision-making, and be deliberate in your strategies. So I think the take-home from this chapter is to really think about what is your game plan in the matchup and which edges are you trying to take. Not everyone wants to be an aggressive player. Maybe you want to be an economical player who is getting ahead and you're defending your lead. Maybe you prefer to be the aggressor and you want to have a strategy where you're attacking. In any case, many of the first interactions between you and your opponent don't conclude the match. So you need to think about, okay, my opening build has these edges to it, and at the end of this exchange, at the end of this attack from the opponent or from me, these are the edges I want to take next. So you want to have a plan A, plan B, and plan C if you can. Hope you enjoyed this chapter, and there'll be more of them soon. This was chapter 6 on leveraging edges and creating openings.